Greetings to all of you on this third night of Hanukah, or as some people may even call it, Hanukah and Hanukah, or something like that, also called by certain individuals, or Hanukah by others. This is indeed the third night of those 8 nights which reveal a certain miracle to us. This miracle is based upon certain accounts that a certain lady had oil only for 1 lamp for a single night. Yet she lighted her light, or I should say lighted the lamp, and the oil did not run out until all the 8 lamps were lighted, and this became the tradition that in the course of these nights, or in the evening, we light a lamp, generally a lamp which should be made of something very simple and lighted and fueled by oil. No doubt many individuals use a 9-stand menorah, but in the old days, until the commandment was given to Moses the prophet, or Moshe perhaps in Hebrew, such 7-standard lamp was not known, let alone a 9-standard one. But the significance of menorah is, of course, commandments and faithfulness of God the Almighty, which is no doubt revealed in the light, because in the very first book of the Torah, the first verse according to modern translation, known Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, we see God says, "Let there be light." And there was light. Light shines in order to prevail over darkness. And later in the New Testament it is said, according to John's Gospel, the darkness did not or has not overcome light, or perhaps in the ancient translation, darkness has not comprehended light. Light was always a symbol which we wanted to have before our eyes. In the book of Samuel, the second book of Samuel, Samuel speaks to God to be his light. And the prophet reveals to us that God the Almighty is the true light for all of us. But returning to the story of Hanukah, we need to remember a few things. This is perhaps even a reflection of the teaching of the sacred Torah, also found in the books of Samuel. When the prophet referred to Elisha the prophet, in that particular incident, a widow who was extremely poor and could not pay back the debts perhaps made by her family members, even her late husband, was unable to pay back the debts, and the creditors came in order to take her children, her sons, by force in order to be the creditors' slaves. But this particular widow rushes to the prophet Elisha. And the prophet Elisha asks her what she has at home in the house. And she indicates nothing, perhaps, which can be considered as valuable other than a very little vessel of oil. And Elisha tells her to go and borrow as many vessels as she finds, even from her neighbors, and to pour that oil into them. And the oil does not run out until all the vessels, including the borrowed ones, are filled. And then Elisha tells this particular woman to go and sell that oil and to pay the debt. Likewise, in Hanukah, this particular lady also pours oil into one lamp, and that same little amount of oil she had for one single lamp, she pours into a second one on the following day, and into the third on the third day or third night, and so on until the 8th night, on which all the 8 lamps are littered to give a marvelous light, as if representing the miraculous love of God the Almighty. But in both those instances or incidents, we see a few similar things which occur. First of all, in both these cases, there are ladies through whom God reveals His glory by performing miracles. We see also that these ladies are extremely poor. They are completely indigent, and they have hardly anything at home, except each of them a little, very tiny vessel of oil. But the miracle does not occur in either of the two cases until that oil, that little oil, which each of them has, is poured into another vessel. A vessel to ensure that that oil is poured and used. These days of Hanukah calls many of us to remember the fact that the lady's oil did not run out, even though she had little. And also the biblical account of the prophet Elisha's performing miracle, or God the Almighty performing miracle through the prophet Elisha, that the oil does not run out even when it is poured into another vessel. In both these incidents, we notice that the oil is poured into something which is totally empty. These two facts, or I should say, the facts contained in these two incidents, may be compared to our world. I assume these two incidents reveal to all of us, at least to me, a humble, unworthy, sinful servant, may be considered an unworthy servant of God the Almighty, or even an unworthy and humble servant of the world. Recognized by these two incidents that we are called upon to give the little we have, to share it with those who are in need. And unless we do so, there is no miracle. The little we have, if we let it stale until we die, we gain nothing, nothing at all. We need to give the little we have and to share it with those who have nothing. And tonight is a test for all of us who believe in the sacred Torah, or even in that particular account of the ladies having a little oil for one and single lamp, and she pours it even into the 8th lamp all throughout those 8 days. Likewise, the miracle performed by the prophet Elisha, that the oil did not run out. Tonight I call upon all those who believe in the sacred Torah and or in that account of the lady in whose miraculous honor we celebrate Hanukah, that we need to come forward and share the little we have with those who have nothing at all. The recent floods caused in the Judea and Samaria did not merely blow out so hundreds and perhaps thousands of tents, leaving people totally defenseless, but even their children being infected by the cold, moist weather. If we follow the Torah, we need to follow it thoroughly, wholeheartedly, remembering God's mercy towards those, even those who persecuted the good ones, or even those from whom the good ones fled. We see, for example, Jacob, who was later called Israel, is someone who deceives his brother, even though, or albeit, by her mother's, Rebekah's counsel. But when he returns home, or on his way, the same brother Esau whom he deceived does not treat him with contempt, but embraces him and welcomes him and offers him even protection. Later we see that Joseph, son of Jacob or Israel, who is sold out by his own brothers into slavery, is accused by the wife of Potiphar, the captain of the guard, and mistreated even in prison, even though he did nothing wrong, but obeyed the commandments of God the Almighty, following the right path. Yet suffers, but does not take revenge, but opens his hands to serve those in need, even his betrayal brothers and all the people who initially oppressed him in the land of Egypt. We are likewise called upon today to open our hands and to distribute in sharing the little we have, even for the children in Judea and Samaria, also called Gaza, who have so severely been affected. If we truly want to honor our Creator, God the Almighty, we must obey His commands in sharing the little we have with others. Like that lady in the book of Samuel who poured out the little oil she had into an empty vessel. And like the lady in the account of the story of, or the history of Hanukah, who poured out that oil she had into the second lamp, empty lamp, we need to pour out also what we have in service of those who are in so desperate need, who are in far worse and graver situation than ourselves. If we can do this in coming forward to help the desperately needed individuals, I should say the needful, my apologies, the very desperately needful individuals, even those babies and children and women and men in Judea and Samaria, despite the past, and can forgive like Jacob's son Joseph did to his betrayal brothers, or later also, or I should say prior to that, Esau, who forgave his brother Jacob. And time again, in the Holy Scriptures, including the sacred Torah, we see God's people forgiving, that we can fulfill the full calling of Hanukah with all due joy and happiness on our part. It is humanity which makes us human beings, not merely being somehow different from other species of the animal kingdom. We are created in the image of our Creator God the Almighty, the most merciful one, the one who gave everything he had. And according to the New Testament, indeed, God gave his only begotten Son, Jesus Christ, whom we endeavor, or I should say whose birth we endeavor to celebrate in a few days' time, or perhaps in a few weeks' time, depending on our place where we are or where we will be. Yet the message is one and the same. We need to give the little we have to those who have nothing. At least in sharing with them, befitting natural justice and equity based upon true humanity. This is my errand, this is my message upon this third night of Hanukah, while I bid you all the protection of God the Almighty, who created all of us in his own image, even those victims in desperate need this very night. Our joy can be totally full and endless if we can show humanity towards those who need us so desperately, even at this very moment. And during the next few days, few weeks, few months, few years, few decades, leaving behind our generations for the centuries to come. I thank you in anticipation for your kind understanding and the appropriate response, while bidding you a very blissful night, all of you, my fellow global citizens. I remain most humbly at your service, and I say, Chag Hanukah Sameach, happy Feast of Hanukah, and Shalom Aleichem, peace be upon you.